We're at another great spot in the museum, and what are we entering here to see?
We are entering the World War II Atlantic Theater section. In most cases, people think of the Seabees only serving the Pacific, but they actually served in the Atlantic as well. There were more than 10,000 Seabees that served at the invasion of Normandy, and their efforts were integral in getting all of the personnel and the supplies ashore.
Over here we have, it looks like a map of the Omaha Beach and overall Normandy, and a replica of a boat. Could you explain these two things to us?
Sure. The Seabees were actually, they sailed with the British across the channel, and they helped to build the Mulberry Harbors and the Phoenix Harbors. And once those were in place, then these landing ship tanks would come in, and the Seabees would build the causeways that connected the ships to the shore. They did this with pontoons. This pontoon technology was actually created by a civil engineer corps officer, and they were 5 foot by 5 foot by 7 foot steel boxes, and they could effectively lash them together with something called a type of jewelry and create pontoons, barges, ferries, anything like that that allowed items to get from these ships to the shore.
Yeah, I see this boat. So the bridge, the pontoon pieces were stored underneath.
The pontoons were actually usually stored on the side. They were just carried along with it and then dropped in. And then they would lash them all together and build a causeway so that all this stuff could drive off to the shore.
This looks like a modern oil tanker that's designed now, where it was designed as trucks, all kinds of trucks and jeeps on the deck, and that's quite impressive of a ship. Now you're talking about the pontoons. Over here we just have an unbelievable mural.
This is a very unique mural in the sense that this was completely created based on the facts that we knew, not based on a photograph. This shows the invasion of Normandy from the perspective of standing on one of those landing ship tanks, looking out across this pontoon bridge onto the shore. So the Seabees would have built this entire pontoon bridge that would have then allowed jeeps and tanks and that type of thing to drive on shore. In terms of size, when you look at these, each of these pontoons would have been 5 feet across. So that's a 10-foot bridge.
Weren't the guys, when they were assembling this, fired upon?
Oh, most definitely.
Wow.
Most definitely. Seabees oftentimes, even though they're considered more of a defensive type of organization, oftentimes they're on the front lines so that they can get the rest of the personnel ashore.
Wow, that is beautiful. I've seen many black and white documentaries or whatever about Normandy, but I've never seen it in color. And the color on this mural of the hill that they had to get on the beach, and then the Germans were up above. Wow, that was a tough task, but they did it, and the Seabees were there. Wow. Okay, let's move on to the next exhibit and see what amazing thing we have there. Well, another huge room. This place in the out front looks a lot smaller than it is inside. So this room is big enough for a bulldozer.
It is.
Let's take a look at this.
This bulldozer is actually a Caterpillar D7 cable-operated bulldozer. They were produced during World War II, and arguably this was one of a handful of technologies that allowed the Allied forces to win the war. These dozers, along with other types of heavy equipment, were used by Seabees on more than 400 islands in the Pacific to build bases, including barracks and piers and all of that, to allow to support the U.S. island hopping campaign in Japan.
And runways for airplanes, right? That was one of the first things I know that they built, was to be able to get supplies in a lot quicker than having ships do it. So a very valuable piece of equipment. Do you know how many bulldozers that they had?
We don't know how many bulldozers they had. We know the types of bulldozers that were used, but we have no concept of number per se. But what these bulldozers basically did was plow through the jungles and just knock down all the trees to create a flat space that could then be used for airfields, roads,
Bases.
and all that infrastructure.
That was probably the backbone of the Seabees. Well, Laura, we're in another exhibit, and well, as usual, it's totally different than anything else we've seen. What do we have here?
Well, this is our Cold War exhibit. After World War II, Seabees demobilized tremendously, and finally in 1947, they became a permanent part of the Navy. They did a lot of construction, and they did it during wartime and during peacetime. But probably the one thing that they're most famous for during this Cold War period was doing construction in Vietnam. The one thing that they did a lot of were these sea huts. Sea huts stand for Southeast Asia Hut, and they were used for everything. Also known as a hooch, they were used as barracks, they were used as hospitals, they were used as any kind of expeditionary construction. And this one here, we have decked out as they would have had it during Vietnam. And so it has plaques, it has memorabilia, it has photos, a cot, and all of that. So it kind of gives visitors an idea of what Seabees' life was like in the field.
I recognize mosquito netting. Well, this exhibit, I see something different. Seabees underwater construction teams. They were above water before. Now you mean they go underwater?
They've always gone underwater. Ever since World War II, there have been divers that served in Seabee battalions. The reason that Seabees were chosen for that, especially during World War II, is they had a lot of explosive demolition experience, and that's the kind of work that had to be done underwater. So today there are actual specific underwater construction teams that only do underwater construction, very different than, say, the SEALs that go and do a lot of demolition and blowing things up. The Seabee underwater construction teams do construction, they do pier work, they do all the underwater cabling systems and that type of thing. In addition, we have the CBC officers who do a lot of the research and design, and one thing that they designed here in Port Hueneme is the NEMO. The NEMO was part of the Seabee underwater program. It's the first acrylic-hulled submersible, and it was used to as part of the Man in the Sea program when they were trying to get people underwater, deep underwater.
Real deep.
Real deep underwater.
Wow. The different aspects of the Seabees, it's just amazing that there were so many technical things that needed to be understood and implemented so quickly and doing it right, because I don't think too many of these they can afford a mistake. Yeah. And is this a underwater uniform of some type?
It is. That's one of the dive suits. It's no longer used, but it was used primarily through the 1970s to the early 90s. So these Seabee underwater construction team divers wear really big, heavy suits because they don't really swim through the water. They're not necessarily like swimming like scuba. They're going down, say, at a pier, making sure that that pier is stable, and then coming right back up. But they're carrying a lot of heavy equipment with them, and they use very specialized equipment.
Well, Laura, this is a different, interesting room, and well, we got children in here.
We do.
What is this?
This is the museum's first STEM center. The actual title of it is See the Engineering Magic, and it is a STEM center for younger kids that have different hands-on activity stations that link up with the different CB ratings.
Wow. Let's look at some of this stuff. You can tell us, what are these different stations that the kids can come and do?
Well, for example, we have an equipment operator station, and we have remote control tractors and bulldozers and things like that, so kids understand that that's the type of thing that equipment operators do. We have a utilities man one that shows, it has a marble run that we usually are doing, and it shows how plumbing works and how things move through. And the idea is that kids who just visit will learn more about the skill sets that it takes to be a CB or a civil engineer corps officer.
Wow, it's like a Lego museum type of thing, and the kids, I'm sure, understand it better than I do. I couldn't operate any of this. But speaking of kids, does the museum have tours available for schools or bring their kids over here, how would they contact you to make that happen?
The museum definitely offers tours for adults and for kids. You can just call the museum at 805-982-5165. We offer a variety of educational programs. Actually, this year is the CB 75th anniversary, so we have a whole variety of things that we're offering. And so definitely give us a call or check our website.
I want to thank you so much for giving us a tour. This is another jewel that we found in Port Hueneme, and again, it is on Ventura Boulevard at the Sunkist Gate entrance, and it's free. You don't even have to go on the base. You just pull in their parking lot here. And what are the hours that you're open?
We're open Monday through Saturday from 10 until 5 each day.
Again, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this. Any comments you have are appreciated, and look forward to seeing you again on the next Hello Port Hueneme.